Boys, it's been a couple weeks too long. I'm here, 4th of July weekend. Literally in the bed. I never do this, but I'm in the bed working on a Miro board for you guys. Check out this house. So we pulled up. We've been here for a couple days. We've got, look at this house. We got wide body Urus. George is somewhere in the Ghost that we rented. We've got a Maybach Urus. Check out this house. So sick. Big old pool up there. But today, I've got something very special. So, as I'm here in the Hamptons, something that I immediately noticed is the difference of money in Miami versus the Hamptons. We went out the first night. We went out to dinner, and then we went out to this little social spot. And I asked this dude, because he's standing next to me. I'm like, oh, yo, what do you do? And he's like, I'm retired. And I was like, he looked like he was 18. And then I realized, I was like, it's a completely different scene here, right? In Miami, everyone has kind of come up on their own. Everyone's made their own money. Everyone's they've had to prove themselves. They've had to earn everything. And, I've only been here for a couple days, but it seems like here, no one wants to be known. All the kids, it's maybe there's successful business on here, but if you're 21 and you make money, where are you going to go? The Hamptons, New York? You're going to go to Miami, right? So most of the kids here, it's been handed to them. They haven't had to earn it, right? They're on level 100, but they don't have level 100 man skill. They just have level 100 lifestyle because it's been given to them. And I realized just as I was observing, it brought this thought up in my head. And I was like, man, that kid, he's cooked. That's the worst thing that his dad could have done to him, because now he doesn't actually have the skill to sustain where he's at, and he's going to constantly spiral out of control because he's just trying to fill the void because he didn't have to earn any of the things that he has. And I was like, this is kind of what happens when you're stuck between 20 and 30K a month as a fitness coach. You've now destroyed all the needs that you had previously. There's no more you can go to whatever restaurant you want. You probably bought your dream car, right? You've proved to everyone that you can make money and that you were right. But you're not balling out of control. And so you get in this weird situation where you get tested. There's business principles that you're tested on, and then there's mental principles as an entrepreneur that you're tested on. And this is really where, guys, it's you either make it or break it if you're going to go and you're going to scale to $50,000, $100,000 a month, or if you're going to stay at 20 to 30K for a couple of months or a couple of years and then fizzle out as kind of a wannabe who never grew into his full potential. And so there's so many things that happen in between that period that keep you from growing. There's so many things that keep you from making more money. There's so many things that, you wake up every day and you feel like you don't have that drive anymore to prove yourself. You don't have that hunger. Obviously, you want more. You want to make more money. You want to continue improving. But it's so hard to find that vicious hunger that you had when you first started, and it can lead to so many mistakes. So in this video, what I want to do is literally this Miro board that I've been working on this weekend is going to break down all of those bottlenecks. And I want, by the end of this video, I want you to be able to, number one, go from 20 to 30K a month where you're at right now, break past those bottlenecks. So by the end of the summer, you can be at 50, 60, 70, $100,000 a month. And I want you to be able to avoid all of the mistakes that might keep you there if you haven't experienced that yet. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump into the screen here, and I'm going to walk you through the 7 business beliefs that are trapping you at 20 to 30K a month so you can implement them and execute. Write this down, as all of my videos. Take notes, put a hoodie on, no distractions. Actually sit down and take this value in. Don't just sit and just listen and be like, oh, this is nice, this feels good. Actually write down how you can apply this into your life and how you can fit it into the position that you're in now so that it's actually applicable. I didn't just make this for you to just listen and then go scroll to another video. I made it to make you more money, so pay attention. Let's jump in. All right, so now we're in this board that I created for you guys, and like I said, what I'm calling it is, it's basically just the 7 reasons why fitness coaches stay stuck under or around 20K a month. Sometimes it happens at 20, sometimes it happens at 30. It really depends on where you are. But this is not just a mental thing. This is going into the actual systems, sales calls, setters, appointments, messaging, right? Timing. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to walk you through how the mental and the actual executionable items that go in with the business coincide hand in hand. That way you can avoid making some of these mistakes that you would make if you didn't watch this, and you can also work through some of them. So make sure that you're taking notes and you're able to apply these to your offer as you go through. So the very, very, very first problem is selling coaching. You can get to 20 to 30K a month just selling coaching. It doesn't matter if you have 100,000 followers. It really doesn't matter what you're doing. You can get to 20 to 30K a month, but you can't go past it, and you'll start to reach a massive constraint or a breaking point if you're just selling coaching instead of selling an identity, right? All of my most successful coaches, like for example, Bennett Luke here, they are selling an identity, right? 90% of you watching this video struggle with this pain point the most, but you're thinking about your coaching as like an e-commerce product that, you know, gets people a six-pack, but it's so much more. It's the experience. It's the paradigm shift of them working with you. It's them actually changing their life. It's them taking the risk and investing money that, you know, takes a toll on them, that really turns what you're doing into an identity instead of them just buying a product. If you're a consumer, you can buy a product, not use it. But when you're buying a digital product like coaching, it needs to change the way that you think. It needs to change the way that you operate. It needs to change the way that you go about through day-to-day life. But where that starts is in the content. So every successful coach sells their identity online, not just a program. People want to buy into an identity. The reason why some people might think that your program is overpriced is because you're just selling a program and you're not selling an identity. A real personal brand where you're selling an identity, there's no cap you can put on that. There's people that sell $200,000 coaching programs, and you guys think that I'm crazy. I promise you, there's a whole nother side to this game than you even understand, right? You're selling your story, your thoughts, your feelings, and the understanding that you've developed along the way that intertwines with this life-changing protocol that you've created. Because half of the value is found for the client actually making that emotional shift and investing in your identity. When it comes, especially if you have something like fitness, or let's say like real estate, for example. If you're a real estate coach, even if you're just coaching to guys who are like just getting into the field, all of the information that they need to like get started and, you know, get their first few listing appointments is there. Why aren't they taking action on it? Because number one, they're not fully committed. Number two, they don't feel like they have a route where it's laid out for them. Number three, they don't have people to hold them accountable. Number four, they're not 100% convicted that it's right for them and can fit into their life. And so when you sell an identity, that's the thing that pushes them over the edge, that makes them be like, wow, this is someone who's like me, who's had similar struggles as me, who's gone through something similar of me, and then he also has the dream outcome that I'm looking for. And that's what happens when you're selling an identity over just a product, because they actually make that shift, and that is where everything starts to change, right? But what happens is a lot of guys they'll make the mistake of just being like, you know, all in their content. It even makes you a bad content creator because you're posting videos acting like, and with the thought process that you're just selling some like Google Doc. And it stems from a fundamental lack of having a narrative behind your offer. Fitness coaching is an emotional investment. The offer isn't just good based on the outcome, right? It's good based on the story and the narrative behind the offer. That's what makes the offer unique. That's what makes the offer special, right? No one sees, hey, I'm going to get you a six-pack, and they're like, oh shit, let me pay you $3,000. It doesn't work like that, right? But when they see the narrative of, you know, you were extremely overweight and getting a six-pack taught you discipline. It taught you how to have self-confidence. It completely changed your outlook on life. It showed you how, you know, pain always equals reward when you take, you know, the most difficult path in life. That is the narrative behind the offer that you're selling that people start to relate to, they start to buy into, and they start to live their life based on the narrative that you've created, and that is what makes your program so much more valuable. So the very first thing that you have to do is sell identity, not just some coaching program, or you're never going to break. And if you're making 20K a month just selling coaching, great. That just goes to show you have so much more potential to break past, but you're not going to find a single person making 50, 60, 70, $100,000 a month who's just selling a program, right? You're selling an identity. And keep in mind, this isn't as true when it comes to B2B, but it's still like 80% applicable, right? Yes, you can have a really, really good offer and make money when it comes to B2B. Most of you guys aren't B2B, but if you are, I just wanted to throw that in there. So right here, number 2 is a massive mistake that people make is not creating a category king. So what I mean by that is not having a overall theme, not having a category that is top of mind for people when they come to your profile. So this is my client, Jake Seals, right? He posted this video like 2 weeks ago, I think. And he was really, really having this like struggling dip. Like he bought my mentorship before. We got him to like right at about like 30K a month, and then he did his thing, and then he came back to me. He's like, yo, I want to upgrade to the elite. So he paid, he did that. We've been working together a little bit more specifically. And one of the biggest things that I've been telling him to do is I'm like, Jake, you've got an amazing physique, got a great story, but you're stuck at 20 to 30K a month, right? You're not building density and narrative behind your offer. You're not, like I just said in number 1, it blends into number 2 of creating a category. And so therefore, no one is constantly like having this theme or this category in their head that they associate you with, right? And so a big thing that we identified in Jake's life is he had this, he's like, I'm pretty sure Jake's 24, but he has this dilemma where he's like, should I move down to Miami? Should I go like, guru mode? Should I stay here? Should I move in with, my girlfriend? I think him and his girlfriend have been dating for a couple of years, and he really loves the girl, but he's like, what do I do? Da, da, da. And I'm like, Jake, this is your brand. You're struggling with, like, I don't think that you're like the Miami type. Like, you're so relatable and your clients love you because you've accomplished so much and you still like live in your hometown. You need to take advantage of that and you need to double down on that. You got to start showing yourself in multiple different environments, because all you would do is you'd see Jake, he'd be at the gym, or you would see him like in his room. And I'm like, there's no density to what you're talking about. You're trying to sell a $4,000 fitness program where you're going to help a dude like, grow his arms, but like no one cares because there's no category around what you're selling, right? So I started telling him, I'm like, bro, post like the little intimate moments that like in your head you just want to experience. But that's going to build so much more relationship and show that category, because something that's big for him is like, yo, staying in your hometown, having success, keeping God first, not just like getting lost in the sauce, right? And, still pushing yourself every day, but like he likes the simple things, right? And so I'm like, bro, start incorporating your girl into your content. Like they were about to go out for his anniversary, and I literally told him this exact video to make. I'm like, bro, when y'all are in the, because he bought his dream car in my program. He bought a super dope Corvette. I'm like, bro, before y'all go inside, like set up your phone and make a video. Talk about how she was with you before you ever made any money and how she stayed by your side. Like this builds a category in your brand that makes other guys who think like you want to buy into what you're doing, because it separates just the product and you've become your own identity. You're in your own lane. And he makes this video, and the video got like 270,000 views of just him and his girl in the car, and he's talking about this, right? So by creating a category that's like king in your content, it makes your narrative concrete. The viewer can actually piece together different sources of information that separate you, rather than them just coming across your page and being like, oh, he's just like everyone else. This actually allows the identity to sink its roots into the viewer's mind, so that as they're going through their day experiencing problems, having problems, in the gym with the things that they watch you for, they can start to implement your way of thinking into their life, and that's where the change actually starts to happen, right? So being yourself is going to allow you to create this unique mechanism or this category that's going to be a pattern interruption, and it's actually going to serve for building your brand, because all the little moments that you usually don't want to share the world are the ones that perform the best, right? And I'm not saying Jake needs to go sit here and like talk about everything that's happening in his relationship, but there's like, who's to say he's taking his girl out, he can take a 1-minute video, because it shows what he's doing outside of him just like being some meathead in the gym, tracking his macros and waking up early, right? It adds density, it adds character, it shows who he is on a more human level, and it separates him from all the rest of the social media influencers who are just worried about views. But the beautiful part is This video got the most views of any video he's posted recently, brought him the most traction because it was a huge category that resonated with his story. It was very, very, very congruent to how he thinks, how he is. It was very, very, very authentic, and that's why it did really, really, really good. So when you really understand the category and the messaging that is around that category that you can create as like a king to serve the narrative of your offer, see how everything is building together, it's perfectly stacked on top of each other, then all of your content gives you more authority. Instead of it just seeming like you're just throwing a dart and hoping it lands, everything is building towards that narrative. Everything is building towards your brand. Everything is creating a unique identity around you. And therefore, you don't have to sit here and just talk about how good your product is. People see your product in display every single day through your relationship, the habits that you have, what you do at the gym, how you hold yourself, your morals, your standards, etc. Your content should almost feel like, when you do this, it should almost feel like you're breaking that personal barrier between you and the consumer in order to teach an accurate lesson. Especially as guys, like I find myself doing this all the time. If I'm having like a cool experience, especially if I've worked all day, the last thing I want to do is pick my fucking phone up and be like, hey, this is what I'm doing right now. Like, I don't want to do that, but that's what builds the connection. And the more you can share that moment or that thought process with your viewer, the more you're going to create a unique identity and the more of a relationship that you're going to build. So this blends perfectly into number 3, which is a massive mistake. And this, like, I've had guys with, like Coach Blue, 8 million followers making this mistake. So it really doesn't matter how big or how small you are, but this more so applies to people who have already made money. But this is one of the worst mistakes you can make, and that's speaking to your whole audience. All right, so you might be like, what does that mean? Speaking to my whole entire audience? I've worked all this time to gain these followers. Why wouldn't I speak to them, right? You can see this picture of me, and I was making a story in the morning, and I'm going to tie together how this brings the point that I want to give to you guys. When you understand your audience is not just your followers, you can really, really hone in on all the words and the language that you use, because there's a big difference between followers and engaged, attentive viewers. And when you have a coaching business, your metric is sales. Your metric is how much money can I make in the most efficient way. So you're not worried about how many eyeballs you get in front of. You're worried about engaged, attentive eyeballs, like real viewers. And what you need to do is you need to start to understand, like, what's unique about your story that's going to speak to those people. So I'll give you an example. I'm one of the only guys who doesn't sell the lifestyle the way that I could. I don't really sell the dream, because when I was a wantrepreneur, when I wanted to be an entrepreneur and I didn't actually have a business that made me any money, and I was just making videos as a dumb 18-year-old kid on YouTube hoping that something would work, I didn't just fantasize about having a supercar and life just being perfect. I fantasized about actually having a business where I could, go on a vacation like this and work from my laptop. I fantasized about like having a business where I could sit down at my computer and actually work hard for 8 hours and solve problems and put out fires and figure things out. I wasn't just fantasizing about, oh, I'm just going to make money and life's going to be amazing. That was the thing that I wanted. So I resonated with the people that sold the work and the actual process and the information, rather than people who just sold the lifestyle. And that's what I speak to in my videos. It'd be very, very easy for me to just display this like perfect life. Everything's amazing. My beard is always perfectly cut and my Ferrari just makes me feel like I own the world, right? But that's not the case. Quite frankly, every time I get in my car, it's cool, but I'm desensitized to it. It's normal, right? I don't wake up in the morning just like absolutely geeked to just get after the day. I do it because it's my purpose. It's my mission, right? And I could act like that every single day my life is just amazing and I just like shit rainbows, but that's not how life works. The actual reality is, doesn't matter how much money you make, it's always hard. There's always problems. There's every single solitary day, there's things that I don't want to do. There's stress. There's things that are not fun. But I talk about that because that's what interested me when I was coming up building my business. So what is that me doing? That's me speaking to a specific ICP within my following. The guys who are fantasizing about the work and the actual the mission that they are going on rather than just fantasizing about the dream outcome. And what that does is that brings me people who are like me, who resonate with my story. They want the product that I'm offering, and they also, it allows me to understand that they're going to be high quality leads. Because most of the time, the people who just want the outcome without the work, they're shitty clients. But every single person I bring on, like, they're ready to get after it. They want to work hard. And so I don't just speak to everyone. There's plenty of guys in my audience who they probably want to buy from someone who's just going to tell them that once they make money that their life is just like sunshine and rainbows. But it's not like that, right? And so I don't want those people in my program. But I got to this point by understanding and reflecting on my own journey, but also by reading comments, understanding DMs, and watching how my viewers responded to my content. What content did good, not just based on views, but saves, shares, who's responding to it, right? What's the retention rate through the video? You should start to curate your message to speak to the most qualified and highly engaged people, not just what gets the most views, because you can easily have that vanity metric where you're like, oh, this video got a bunch of views, this video got a bunch of views, and now you're an influencer with 200,000 followers and you make $3,000 a month. Right? No one wants to be that. That sucks. So speak to certain conversations, certain emotions, and certain scenarios, like the example I just gave you of me speaking to the guy who actually wants to work hard, wake up early in the morning, who knows that the money is not the end result, it's just a tool, and the money is a byproduct of the work that you do. That's a certain scenario, and that's what I speak to. The same exact way you should be speaking to those scenarios as you make your content, right? Most people are also scared. They're scared to be like too polarizing or too specific. But that is, again, what makes you the money. The more specific you can be towards one certain sect, the more pain you're going to touch on, and the more you're going to disqualify the people that you don't want in your audience. Don't be scared to lose people. Because when you lose people, that's how you know you're getting closer to the people that you actually want to be in front of. We're not trying to convert everyone, right? We're not. You got to think about it. If 1,000 people pay you for a $1,000 program, that's $1 million. Wow, you're a millionaire. It's really, really simple when you talk about that. But when you're in the high ticket game of selling 3,000, 5,000, we've got a $30,000 offer that I sell, right? You don't need to convert everyone. You just need to speak to a certain 15 to 30 people every single month, and you're balling. But you have to be willing to be polarizing. You have to be willing to step on people's toes. You have to be willing to have some people not like you, right? Because what that does, you need hot and cold air to create a tornado. You have to have extreme hate in order to have extreme love, right? If people are indifferent, you might feel good about yourself, but it's not going to do anything, and you're not actually going to make any waves. Now, number 4, this one is more of like a mental struggle that you'll see. And a lot of you guys are probably experiencing this in the current moment. And I'm calling it the unbalanced goal ratio, right? So a lot of you guys, like, say you're at, you're making $27,000 a month. And every day you're like, man, I want to get to 50K. I want to get to 50K. You want to get to 50K, but you're barely even operating at the level that you're at now. Some of you guys are so talented that, like, maybe you have, $15,000 a month daily actions and habits, but you're talented enough that it bridges the gap and it gets you to the 27K. And so in your head, you're like, oh man, I've gotten to this point. I can just wait it out and I'm going to get to 50. You need to, the higher up in money you go, the less your talent matters, the less you can rely on your talent. And so you say you want to get to 50K a month, but you're too scared to change up your content. You're too scared to go backwards first in order to move forwards. You're too scared to trailblaze and start to take risks. You're too scared to be vulnerable. You're too scared to make places. Like, once you start making money, now you have something to lose, but you have to be willing to risk that. Some of you guys are worried about, like, posting a new style of content. Like, oh, what's going to happen if I post this? I'm going to lose the engagement. Who cares? Every time you make a move, you now get data, right? If I take one step left, I get to see what happens. Did I take a step left? Did I fall off the cliff? Or did I realize, oh, I'm going in the right path? I now have data to make my next decision. Otherwise, you're just standing in one spot and you're blind. You can't go anywhere. You have to be willing to fall off the cliff, because then, in business, you have so many opportunities. Once you guys get to, like, $1 million a month, There's a lot more danger. There's a lot more failure that you're capable of making. But none of you guys right now can fail. It's like, you made 20K a month. Wow, you could lose everything and make that shit back in a month. You could get back there so fast, right? So don't worry so much about losing. Worry more about getting more data, because the more data points you have, the better you can make decisions. If I take 3 steps to the left and they were all the wrong moves, I now at least know I can backtrack and say, where did I go wrong? How can I apply this next to make the right move? Now you're actually operating with as a mathematical business owner, and not just someone who's just operating based on well, here's what I think is going to go on, right? You can't break 30K a month without taking your own risks and taking your own steps, right? You have to create your own style or your own flow. Otherwise, you're never going to get past that. You can follow someone else's trends. You can follow someone else's funnel, someone else's, specific way of posting content where they post and you just get your ideas off the internet. But the second you want to actually make real money, you're going to have to start to establish your own concepts of thought. Otherwise, you're not going to get there. You can't compete with the top, because to be top talent, you have to realize that the power lies in your own perception. You see this diagram up here, right? The pessimist is looking at the top of the glass. We've heard this all the time. It's the most basic analogy, right? The pessimist is looking at the top of the glass and he's like, oh, this glass is half empty. The optimist is looking at the bottom of the glass and he's like, oh, this glass is half full. But the double-edged sword is that they're both right. They're both right. It's based on your perception, right? So it's like, you think this is going to work? You're right, it will. You think this is going to not work? You're right, it will. The outcome of the thing lies in your hands. The second you believe this is not going to work, well, no amount of luck can overcome that. The second you believe this is going to work, it might not work the first time, but once you've decided this is going to work and you decide nothing's going to stop you from figuring it out, it will work. We don't live in a universe of luck. We live in a universe of time, data, and action. And the more action you take, the closer you get to guaranteeing your success, right? You decide, is the glass half empty or is it half full? And then the outcome will manifest itself, but only based on your decision. You have the perception. You can't let someone else decide for you. You can't let someone else give you the vision. You have to decide. You have to take the risk of being willing to be wrong. Because when someone else moves for you and then you act on behalf of their move, you can be like, oh, it wasn't me. They messed up and I thought, well, whatever. But you have to be willing to take the step and then also take the blame. But when you take the blame, then you get the data and you get to see what you did wrong, right? So don't try and be a CEO when you're making $20,000 a month. You're not. You don't deserve an appointment setter just because you've been making 20K a month. You shouldn't be trying to free up time all of a sudden because you're making 20K a month, right? You don't even have enough data, again, what I was just talking about, to teach an appointment setter how to close more appointments. You've closed 4, 5. How are you gonna let him know what he's doing wrong when y'all get to 30 a month, 40 a month? You have to get to certain levels in this game before you start operating like you're some million a month CEO. And what you need to do is you need to start looking at the glass as this will always work. I always need to test more. I always need to do more. I have more time, right? That's the only way that you're going to be able to have a goal that's balanced out with the action that you're doing. And number 5, I'm calling it 2020 systems, because there's so many guys in this space who were huge, big time, right? Massive offers. But the problem is they ran something that worked in 2018, 2019, 2020. And they're still running it today. And they're updating their marketing, they're updating their front end funnel, but they're like, what's wrong? Why did I go from $1 million a month to $100K a month, right? It's because you have to constantly move with the market, and your systems need to move with the market. It's super, super hard to do this because, for instance, right now we're building out a new course, and it's 36 hours long, and it's literally just destroying me. There's just so much information. Now, we're making a ton of money with the course that I made 9 months ago, right? It's still better than everyone else's, But I have more information to add. I have more data that I've collected that I want to add to this course. And I know that if I don't bite the bullet and make it now, eventually I will get outpaced by the market. So I can keep making money with an old system, but you want to bite the bullet early, update your system so that your system is constantly evolving with the rate at which you're going, right? So your systems are either backwards or you don't have any at all. And when I say system, I'm not meaning like you have the best CRM in the game or like, some perfect software or workflow. I mean you have a consistent thought process or execution that gets you the desired result over and over again, right? If you don't have a consistent thought process that gets you your desired result over and over and over again, no matter how many different changes or nuances there is, you don't have a system. That is what a true system is. It's like I can rely on this thing and it's going to get me the most consistent outcome regardless of the variable, right? So an example of this can be in the DM setting process. DM setting is, especially if you're like closing in the DMs. I've closed $30,000 deals in the DMs, 15K deals, right? We close, multiple 2,500, 5K, $7,500 DMs all day long in the DMs. But the problem is people can perceive text in multiple different ways based on the emotional state that they're in, based on the view of you that they have, right? They can perceive, you might assume something that they don't fully understand. There's so many different things that can mess up. So in DM setting, there's a ton of nuance. Having a good DM setting process would mean that you have a system that no matter the person, no matter the time, no matter the offer, no matter the price, you constantly are still getting a consistent result that you desire. Like, a good system is like, let's say my KPI is, we need to book 20 calls a week. The system would be no matter what kind of ad you run, no matter what kind of content you post, no matter, how your YouTube is doing or whatever, you can still get to that KPI metric every single solitary week. That would be a good system. It doesn't just mean you have some tasks written down in Notion, right? That is what a true system is, right? So you have to be tracking data, especially at like 20 to 30K a month, but you have to understand why you got the certain KPI or the certain result, right? So again, we'll go back to the DM process, the DM setting process. If you close some dude who's been watching you for a year, no sales call, and it was like the worst DM setting sequence ever, and you're like, oh, I've got my DM setting sequence. It's not a true system, because if you use that on a dude who's maybe only watched you for 2 weeks, he's only watched one YouTube video and he doesn't really understand your process, you're not going to get the same outcome, right? Therefore, it's a broken system because you don't know the data behind, well, why did this guy close and this guy didn't? So the more data that you can have to where you can build congruencies to reinforce your system so that it gives you a consistent result every single solitary time, the better, because if it's not predictable and repeatable, it's not a solid metric. So a lot of you guys think you have a system, but you haven't actually weighed all of the results and seeing, okay, how do I keep this consistent? You're just kind of winging it. You're like, well, I sent this last time and it worked, and I sent this last time and it worked, and I think you booked a call because of this, but you can't make decisions based on think. You have to make decisions based on what is, right? And half of the problem, in my opinion, is coaches delegating shit before they've mastered it, right? Like hiring a videographer or an editor before you've even mastered how you can get 10K views on every single reel. It makes no sense, because he's going to give you a video and you're going to be like, oh, this is dope. But your skill level doesn't even understand what a video needs to get 10K. So he's giving you inputs, you're posting them hoping it's going to work, but you don't have any real data to grade if he's doing a good job or not. So how do you make improvements? How do you change? You need to master the thing first before you hire someone else in your place. And the beautiful part about it is, bro, you can make 200K a month and you still have time on your hands. You still, if you're making 20K a month, you're not doing much. It really does not take that much if you actually sit down and look at it, like compared to what it would take out in the real world to make, 240 grand a year. Like, oh, whoa, bro, you have to answer some DMs on your phone and post some videos. So difficult, right? There's so many things that you need to master before you implement someone else, right? Or like getting a sales guy. So some of you guys are like, oh, I want someone to take my calls, and like you haven't even closed 100K in deals. How are you going to know if these guys are closing properly? How are you going to, as the actual business owner, know what direction we need to go in, know how to make things better, know how to fix bottlenecks. You're not going to. So you got to stay away from trying to automate processes when you aren't even at your constraint. Push it to the constraint. Okay, I'm taking 10 calls a day and then 5 onboarding calls with my clients, and I'm getting to the point where I'm literally losing high quality leads. Perfect. Now you can implement a sales guy. But just because you're lazy and you're like, oh, I want to train at the gym for 4 hours and instead of taking my sales calls, it's like, you can do that, sure, if your goal is to just like, live a happy, wonderful life. But if your goal is to grow your business and like be a monster and compete in the game, you got to understand this. Like, there's no point in you trying to automate or free up more time for yourself. It doesn't work like that, right? There's one of my favorite quotes ever. It's scale punishes inefficiency, because it gives you all the data that you need to fix the holes. You're worried about like, oh, well, if I have someone else, in my DMs, it's going to be more efficient. No. Push it to the limit. This is it's the entire system of building muscle. What happens when you go in the gym? You go in the gym, you push your body past its limits, you break down muscle tissue, and then your body has the data, it has what it needs to reconstruct the muscle tissue bigger than it was before. If you don't break the tissue down, if you don't damage it, the body doesn't build it back up. It's the same thing with your business. If you don't push to the limit, you cannot rebuild it to the next level. You're just going to sit there and wonder why you're giving inputs, but nothing is happening, right? So scale punishes inefficiency. If you don't move fast enough, you don't actually know what needs to be fixed. And then we have this kind gentleman here. Number 6 is demanding authority, right? This is one of the worst things that I've seen with new coaches. This is more of a mental thing, but it's like your personal brand is held up by your connection to your audience. A lot of you guys will see people like this, and you'll be like, oh, I'm going to talk the way that this guy does. You don't have 6 years of YouTube videos, right? You're not as polarizing as this guy. You don't have, it's the same thing with me. It's like, if you're trying to talk about, like locking in and living a better life to sell business coaching, but you drive, a Kia, you can't speak the same way that I do at 21, having a Ferrari that shoots flames, right? And it's not to say that those things matter. They don't, but in the consumer's mind, they do, because you don't have the authority that you need. So just demanding authority doesn't work. You have to build it in front of your audience, right? The tighter and more like cult-like that your audience is, the better. Because if people don't know your lore, it just turns them off to the idea of your success. The more they know who you are, the more they know what you've struggled with, the more they see the relatability between their life and your life and how you are almost like an extension of them, the more they want you to be successful. But at first, if you just jump on the scene, or if there's no personal connection, let's say you have 100,000 followers, but people only followed you because you have a good physique. They don't know anything about like what makes you tick. They don't know what you like and enjoy. They don't know anything about, your story, why you got into the gym, or your pain. Then like your opinions and thoughts don't matter. They just care about your physique. Or let's use the real estate example. Like if you've sold, $17 million in real estate, and then you come on the scene immediately trying to demand authority just because you've closed $17 million in real estate. No one gives a damn. They don't care. Why should they listen to you just because you've gotten some outcome? You might have been given it by your family. You might, be a better speaker than them. You have to start building authority by showing up as who you actually are, documenting who you are, and your audience will start to give you the authority naturally. You can't just come on the scene trying to tell all these people like what they need to do to change your life. You're just going to be perceived as some, stuck up douchebag, right? Show your thought process, show your development, and create ideas in front of them in real time. Show them, your brainstorming process. Well, here's why I'm doing this. Here's why I'm making this change, right? So many people, they want to brainstorm in private because they're like, well, I want to get it perfect. The fact that you don't get your idea perfect, maybe you're about to do a new series of videos and it flops. Tell them, hell, it flopped. I didn't like this. Here's why I think it did. This is what builds authority. Stop trying to be so like perfect, behind closed doors. Just the more that you can open up, I promise, the more authority you will start to have. It's going to make the connection between you and your audience so strong that they're going to watch everything you post religiously. And once you develop an audience like this that's super cult-like, everything you do has so much more density, right? This doesn't work. This crashes out because there's no depth it's just flash. It's just Bugatti, right? It's just, oh, here's what you need to do, here's what you need to do, but there's no actual depth of the soul. That's what really builds an identity and builds a personal brand. And number 7, this is the last one. This is a picture of me, and I was working at this place called Huey Louis. I might have been 18 in this picture. I think I was sick. I think this was like my 3rd job of the day. I was working TaskRabbit. I was working at this Mexican restaurant, and I was also I was working for a moving company. Like, I had so many different things that I was doing, trying to just. I had some e-com businesses that I was running, and I was just going into crazy amounts of debt. But the problem with this young man here is that I wanted the confidence before I did the thing. So I wanted to know that I was going to be successful taking the action before I took the action. And that was my biggest problem. I needed to understand that in this game, the execution comes first and then the confidence arrives. Because you get confidence after you do the thing because you realize what you didn't know before. And the worst mistake you can make is waiting for the confidence to execute before you actually try and do the thing. Because the confidence comes, like I said, from trial and error, learning over and over, not vice versa. You're never going to gain confidence. You're never just going to gain divine intervention that makes you feel like, yes, I know everything that I'm going to do. It doesn't work like that. You have to be willing to, you have to have the balls to take the risk first. And then if you fail, you fail. But now you actually have, again, data. Do you see the congruency between this whole entire chart? Now you actually have the data to make your next move with confidence because you realize what went wrong the time before. So life isn't going to give you the skill before you take on the challenge. And if you're sitting at 20 to 30K a month right now and you're wondering how you get to 50, start doing the thing that you fear the most because you cannot make mistakes. The only mistake is you die and you can't make any more money. Everything else is just a data point that you can learn from. But most guys, they're too scared to have rapid failure. And you've developed an ego now that you're at 20K a month and you feel like you know something. And so therefore you don't want to fail publicly. But once you realize that my business, we did 371K last month, right? I think we'll probably do 5 or 6 this month. That doesn't matter. There's guys who make that in a day. In a day. I follow this one crypto kid. He's like 17. He has like 300 million in crypto. The shit's on me, right? I can't even touch that. But he moves fast, right? And the only way for me to get to that level is to continue moving fast. If I sit here and think like, oh, well, I know so much. I've been able to accomplish all this at 21 years old. That's the day that I lose the game. The reason I'm able to continue progressing at such an exponential rate is because I understand that the skill doesn't come before I take on the challenge. I take on the challenge and I build the skill as I fight and as I learn. And I promise you, if you execute all 7 of these things, you actually take notes and then you throw them into your offer and you start to write down and brainstorm, how can this be related to my content, to my YouTube, to my sales process, to my funnel, to my messaging, and you really start to integrate it. Go back and take literally paused notes and integrate them into different sections. I promise by the end of the summer, you'll be making 50 to 100K a month if you can really, really execute these. If you want to see how we've actually combined all of these things into the one-on-one mentorship to help coaches scale from 20 to 30K a month to 50, 60, 70, $100,000 a month, you can click the first link in the bio. You can book a call with my team, or if you want to talk to me, you can shoot me a DM on Instagram. I answer all of my DMs, but everyone that joins, they jump on with my team so that you can understand the systems. It's really just a discovery call so that you can have an understanding of the dashboard that we have, everything, all the solutions that we have to help you scale your business. Shoot me a DM on Instagram. Also, leave a comment about which one of these you think is going to integrate the best into your business. And I will see you guys next time. Vlog is dropping at the end of this week. Love you, boys. Peace.